We're going to move on to our next speaker now, who has such a wealth of experience in the financial sector. He's a Nigerian entrepreneur, an investment banker, and an economist. He's also the founder of the ANAP Foundation, which is committed to the fight for good governance. And in the last couple of days, has become a huge favorite of so many Nigerians for how honest and blatant and just straight to the point he was with his analysis of how Nigeria got to where it got to and what Nigeria should be doing going forward, which is why we brought him here today to help us share where he thinks we should go from here, because his wealth of experience is definitely unmatched, and I hope we can tap into it today. Please welcome the amazing Atedo Peterside.
Thank you, Ebuka. I hope you can hear me clearly. I asked the organizers to make it possible for me to share a screen so that hopefully, yes, I think it's working. I was asked to speak about where do we go from here? And I think that's a very good, where do we go from here? I think that's the logical question to follow Aisha's brilliant summation of how we got here. So if you go to the next slide, I'll give a brief outline of I'm going to talk briefly. First, I'll go down memory lane in a personal way. Then I'll talk about the EndSARS protest or movement, but from the perspective of a bigger picture. And then I'll talk about the events of October 20, which I call Bloody Tuesday and its aftermath. And then I'll really zero in on where we go from here and drop a few ideas about the next steps. So those are the 5 areas I will cover. Now, going down memory lane, the previous slide, please. You've jumped a slide. Yes. You should go to slide 3. You're going the wrong direction. Yeah, that's it. Please just go it slowly and I'll tell you when to move the slide. Going down memory lane, some people who know me say the first time, I repeat that the first time that they thought they knew or they felt I had any political views whatsoever were after the June 12th elections were annulled in 1993, when MK Abiola and Kingibe were running for president and VP, because I came out shortly after the annulment in my 30s then with a full page advert, actually 2 pages in the Guardian, criticizing the federal government of the day, lambasting them as a military government, and they accept that the results of the election. So that was when I first ventured publicly into political activism. Before then, I began a bank, was an investment banker, an economist, and known as an entrepreneur. After that advert, along with 2 other colleagues, Patutomi and I think Samoni, the 3 of us put out a statement in the newspaper appealing to all the Nigerian professionals. We called it concerned professionals, people who were tired of keeping quiet and watching the military and some politicians make a mess of our country. So that was, for many people in my generation who were businessmen or working in private firms and so on, it was a call for political activism. And what were we fighting for? We were fighting for democracy. And right from that day, after the elections were annulled in June 12th, I told all my friends, this is not a marathon, it's a sprint. Because I never believed for 1 second that the army that annulled an election will the following day do a U-turn. So it was a marathon. And for me, the destination was democracy. And it only came on 29th May 1999. That was 6 years later. And in between that period, some of us kept up our activism. All the articles we wrote, the pressure we put was in one direction, for the army to get out of political affairs. Next slide, please. So as soon as, because some people asked me, with all this activism, as soon as we get democracy, I'm sure you're going to run for elections. Are you running for governor? Are you running for Senate? What are you running for? I told them, no, I'm running for nothing. I was fighting for democracy. Democracy is here. Let those who want to take part in that democracy, those whom the people want, should come out and be voted for. So I went back to do my business because mission accomplished. Then came 2010, was the next time I came out politically. And that was when President Yar'Adua died. And some people were trying to, sorry, not when he died, when he was clearly too sick to stay in office. And some Nigerians were trying to pretend that he was well enough to rule. So again, I came out with the full page advert. Many other people did similar things. We put pressure. Eventually, President Goodluck Jonathan was sworn in as acting president. After that, again, I went back to go and do my business. Mission accomplished. The third time I came out was after the events of Bloody Tuesday. I'm talking about in terms of political activism, because I saw EndSARS protesters, a younger generation, struggling and pleading for what? Just an end to police brutality. People who were pleading for police brutality were then visited with army brutality. That was why I came out to do an interview on Arise TV. Please let me make it very clear. Many different stations approached me to do an interview, local and foreign. I was only going to speak once. So I chose one channel just to go and tell the truth. Because I know that at such times, many people are afraid to tell the truth. Next slide, please. You know, the EndSARS protest, if you look, or if you read the demands of the protesters, I think they began to become aware that there was more to what was wrong with Nigeria. Yes, ending SARS was important, but there were other things. There were hints of concerns about the cost of governance, corruption, which led us also into police brutality, because the two were self-reinforcing, because there were reports of SARS officers taking innocent citizens to an ATM machine and forcing them at gunpoint to withdraw money for them. That was corruption. The state didn't send them to do that. So already the protesters were broadening their request, not just to end SARS and replace it with SWAT or something equally cosmetic, but they were looking for meaningful change. So that's why in the next slide, I'm talking about the bigger picture. You see, this is what I consider to be the big picture for Nigeria today. The top left-hand corner is actually what you can probably talk about SARS, policemen at gunpoint terrorizing citizens. But that is only a small part of a big picture. And it's that big picture that I would like us to look at before we identify the next steps. Incidentally, please don't go looking for the artist, because I just told him what to paint and sketch. What this picture is the big picture that sums up what is wrong with Nigeria today. At the dinner table, all the government revenue is placed there. And some people, most of them already overfed, eat up all of the government revenue in recurrent expenditures and debt service, so that they finish. Please, I choose my words carefully. I'm not talking about the size of the budget. The budget includes borrowed funds. I'm talking about government revenue, all the money that Nigeria earns. Some people in government at various levels between them finish all of it on themselves and on debt service. So, and then there's nothing else left for development. The total number of people in government must be less than 2% of the population at all levels, federal, state, and local governments. And this formula of finishing all the revenue on those in government replicates itself from the federal to some states and to some LGAs. So they manage to spend a bit of money on either the SARS or the police to keep you down, or on the right-hand side, the army to shoot you once in a while. And everybody's on the ground begging for crumbs that fall off that dinner table. The number of people on the ground is roughly 194 million Nigerians who do not really get anything from that dinner table, because they finish all the revenue on themselves. And then they tell you that the only way they can help you for development is to go and borrow some money from China or somewhere else. And the citizens on the ground have some things in common. No proper national ID card, no safety nets. So this is the big picture. Even if you solve the problem of SARS on the top left-hand corner, if you leave a small subset of Nigerians to consume all the revenue on themselves and nobody else. The problem persists. They are clever enough to spend a bit of money on the army or soldiers to shoot you, or a bit of money on a new police unit to shoot you and armed robbers. So this is the big picture. Correcting this picture includes a number of things. Transferring more of the dinner to those on the ground. Removing some of the fat cats on that fat table who have no business being there. They add no value. It is a form of legalized corruption in the sense that the Senate or House of Assembly or House of Rep can decide how much money they vote to themselves. And generally what Nigeria does is, as soon as there's a bit more revenue that comes in, we create new agencies that bring in new staff and new employees who are all the relatives and friends of those that are currently in charge, so that they eat more at the table and still leave nothing behind. This is the big picture that the EndSARS protests have opened the eyes of the whole nation. And I want us to keep this big picture in mind. They say, because a picture tells 1,000 words. Next slide, please. So, what was the significance of Bloody Tuesday 2010-2020? There was already tension and anger. The Lekki toll gate shooting fueled the anger in the land. The anger was then further fueled by those who were masters of deception, who came out to tell lies to a nation. So we hear things like the army was not there, but later the army that was not there now says that they fired blanks. If they were not there and nobody called them, why are they now saying that somebody called them? How could they have fired blanks if they were not there? But please don't get me wrong, that is normal in our history. People will come out. I don't even mind the army saying what they're saying. There will be highly educated people coming out to help to masquerade and deny what everybody who has a conscience knows about. So when I went on a Rise TV interview, it was simply to tell the truth and to point out and to help calm nerves, to condone all those who lost loved ones everywhere in the nation, including, of course, the police officers, protesters, even hoodlums are pointed out. So it was basically saying, let us calm down, address the issues. And I knew also that, Christians say the Lord works in mysterious ways. Muslims, some of my Muslim friends say a similar thing in different language. They say the Lord does not make mistakes. The two point at the same thing. What exactly did the Lekki toll gate shooting achieve? Yes, people are in hospital. It was a bloody affair, we know that. But beyond that, what did it achieve? I explained on TV. Perhaps if there was no Lekki toll gate shooting, the bulk of the youths after this week would have gone back to their normal business. The main thing, therefore, that the Lekki toll gate shooting helped to liberate or to create was political activism. So many youths all over the country, the length and breadth of this country, all of a sudden have understood and realized that they have to listen to people like the previous speaker. They must have a say in what happens in their country. And that was why I said, the best way to have a say in what happens in your country is to galvanize your activism and channel the energy towards change today, and also having a major say in the next elections in 2023, which you must begin now to organize to ensure that you bring in real committed people who will change that big picture, people who will understand that they're not in government to finish all your dinner on themselves, to finish all the government revenue on themselves. Next slide, please. So where do we go from here? Remember that big picture. Where we really want to go to is to change that big picture, because that is where the problem lies, of which SARS is a part. In planning this, we have to understand there must be different strokes for different folks. Those who have come together to do something about changing where we are must define the rules of engagement. It's nothing like saying you don't have any leaders. If you don't have leaders, you must have influencers. So begin to identify them. Some words of advice, if you want to win in Nigeria, or indeed anywhere in the world, even in sports, never underestimate your opponents. People who are eating fat at that dinner table will do everything possible to remain there and keep you out. They will try and divide you. You must never let them divide you based on ethnicity, religion, money, or whatever. When I went public on June 12th, I'm a Joe from River State. I know how many people called me. Sometimes the Joes from River State and said that, you're a young man, you began a bank, he's only 4 years old. Why do you want to destroy your future fighting for two Muslims, MKO Abiola and King Gibe? Why do you want to fight for that? If the role was reversed and an Ijaw man won the election, they won't fight for you. I said, thank you very much. I'm not fighting for individuals. I'm fighting to improve my country. I'm fighting for democracy. Some use religion. They called me and said, you're a Christian from a Christian family. Why do you waste your energy and money fighting for two Muslims? If the roles were reversed, Muslims will not fight for a Christian. I said, well, I don't know that. But whether what they want to do, they are free to do. I'm free to do what I want to do, which is that I will fight for any Nigerian that won an election free and fair. I don't care if he's a Muslim. I don't care if he's a Christian. What he is his own business. What I fight for is justice and what is right. Some also use money to try and suppress and divide. Oh, if you give up the struggle, we will give you a bank business. So you know what? If that is the condition for giving my bank business, please don't give my bank business. Give it to somebody else. So people will come and try and divide you. The purpose of this whole thing, where do we go from here, is that we want to raise the bar. You want to raise the bar in two ways. If this movement of Nigerians, the political activism that has been sparked in the youth, is well galvanized, it will do two things. Political parties will be afraid to bring out useless candidates because they will realize that the movement is such that it will consume all the useless candidates. So there will be a struggle to try and bring out better candidates. That by itself is a victory. The days when anybody could bring out his cousin who is the nincompoop and think that everybody will vote for them, the youths will just get together and say, vote for somebody else, don't vote for that clown. So it can help to improve the quality of candidates across the board. And then better still, depending on how ambitious you get, it can get to the youths themselves, organizing themselves and bringing out better candidates themselves. So 5 and 6 are interrelated and both represent victory. If all serious political parties bring out quality candidates, Nigeria is the winner. If all political parties insist on bringing out lousy candidates, and therefore a new one emerges with a critical mass that brings out good candidates, then again, Nigeria is the winner. Next slide, please. Now, there are some things we must remember to stay focused on that big picture. That's why I asked the artist to sketch it and draw it in a manner that even if somebody comes and destroys the painting, it should be in your head. You saw it. You don't need the details. The details are correct. All the revenue is finished. Let anybody come out and challenge me. All the revenue is finished on recurrent expenditure spent on by those in government and debt service, leaving nothing left at the federal government level. Many states are the same. Remember also that this is not the last bus, not the last meeting. Indeed, you can call it the first meeting. You are involved in a marathon. It's not a sprint. Like June 12th, it was a marathon. Like I said, it took 6 years to arrive at the destination. This time, I think many people are dreaming that the destination that we get to with good results at the latest is 2023. So you're talking about almost 3 years of effort. Some obvious things. Your opponents will try and infiltrate your ranks. Why wouldn't they? They did the same on June 12th. And please remember also that in everything you do, one size does not fit all. Sometimes it's a bit artificial, but it's difficult to create a movement, a single movement that everybody in the country will belong to. Sometimes the way forward, it's almost like the history of some of these political parties, even APC. It was some large disparate groups that came together. If you cannot create one single group, create 1, 2, or 3 groups. What matters, the qualification is agreeing to work together. And the purpose and the reason for admitting groups is that you have the same shared vision. That shared vision is to change that big picture. People who are committed to maintaining that big picture, reinforcing it, and telling you everything is all right, they are the people you want to vote out of office come 2023. Next slide, please. So there are some must-win battles. One, within those who want change, you must decide on your initial influencers. I say initial because life does not end today. Some people may be your influencers tomorrow. Some even bigger influencers may join you in 2 weeks' time or in 1 year's time. Leave the door ajar and welcome them. Don't tell them they are too late because you want to build a grand coalition. The bigger you are, the stronger you are, for as long as they have the same shared vision. There's some things you must fight for. One, early issuance of voters' cards. Already some youths approached me, said they heard me on television, they want to get voters' cards, but they were unable to. So you have to start that battle now to force INEC to make it possible for new 18-year-olds to register and anybody else that does not have a voter's card. That should start today. It should be amongst the demands of today. It's INEC's job to do it. The other things you may ask for, electronic reform. Everybody knows that the system dwells or thrives sometimes on falsification of results, snatching ballot boxes. In the 21st century is unnecessary. People should be able to vote in a manner that there's no ballot box to destroy. So you need some electoral reform, meaningful one that will not negate all you're fighting for. Then embrace some other tactics. It's not true that the only way you bring about change is voting for yourself. There are some countries, including the UK recently, where people embrace tactical voting. Tactical voting means there's an election coming around the corner. You're not quite ready. There are two candidates, let's say APC and PDP. If all the youths get together and say, we're voting for candidate A, and candidate A wins, the whole country will take notice. Although you're not the candidate, tactically you have sent the signal that you determine who wins. That way, every candidate will be coming to you and begging you. And if you're together, you can point directions at the better candidate in terms of who he represents and who will correctly work towards readdressing that distorted dinner table I spoke of in the big picture. So at the end of the day, you want success. The way to achieve success is to achieve some quick wins, which can be through tactical voting initially, until you're strong enough to field candidates of your own who have a realistic chance of winning. I don't believe in taking part in the battle just to get slaughtered. Plan so that you can win, so you can bring about change through a combination of tactical voting and fielding realistic candidates. What other battle can you fight for? I'm among those who truly believe that the country will be better if we amend the constitution and allow the president a single term of 5 years or 4 years, so that all this, whoever gets elected knows that the clock starts ticking from day one. If you want to waste it, diligently do so. There's no second term for you. And I say it at the presidential level, because if you try and demand it everywhere, you may not get it, because governors are self-interested, so they may not go for it. But because they're ambitious, some of them want to be president, so they may support you in a single term for a president. Then everybody who becomes Nigeria's president, from the day you are sworn in, the clock is ticking, and you start delivering. And we measure you by how you alter that embarrassing big picture that sends Nigerians into exile to go and look for the means of livelihood in distant countries. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been my contribution, trying to point you in what I believe is the right direction. And it's my sincere hope that out of these deliberations, something very good and productive will come out. I thank you all for your attention. I admire your energy, I admire your organization. You make me feel proud and happy. I believe that this country will succeed with people thinking and behaving the way you have been doing. I thank you all and God bless you.
Please, wherever you are, I don't know, just clap if you can, clap in the chat. This is absolutely amazing. Thank you very much, sir. I know we're not wrong when we said you should come and help us with your wealth of knowledge. So many things stood out for me in what you said there. I think, first of all, it's very important that a lot of people who have been involved in this EndSARS conversation and protests and movement understand, because there's been a narrative about, our parents' generation didn't do anything. And it's very important that you mentioned there that this fight for new Nigeria didn't just start today. There's been people who have been fighting and stopping and fighting and stopping and facing resistance over the years. And it's good to see that you are still in the fight, even at this point with us. Also, I mean, the animation you presented, I think is so apt. Anybody who sees that completely understands what all these conversations are about and what Nigeria is currently going through. So thank you very much for that. Also, what I like that you mentioned is collaboration. You mentioned there that there's no latecomers to any movement or to any fight, and I think that's very important. There might be a tendency sometimes to exclude people who many people feel are not a part of the cause. People are also allowed to change their opinions over time, and I think it's very important that we realize that whenever you join the movement is okay, as long as you're a part at some point that you believe in the cause. And finally, of course, 2023 is on everybody's mind. Most people have said, this 2023 is too far. If only we had elections this year, if only the elections were sooner, with the energy that young people have now, it would have been more effective. But I'm sure the fight everybody has to keep up now is to sustain the energy. We're in a democracy, and elections will always be important. And the next elections, and this is not just about presidency, it's across board. There's a plethora of offices that are occupied by Nigerians, and everybody needs to pay more attention. Put pressure on INEC to do the right thing, not just at the elections, but starting today, to make sure that the entire process is seen as flawless and works for Nigeria as a whole.